there's a particular theory that is sometimes referred to as the gap theory. That says that there's a gap between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Right. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, period. There would be a period of time there, an unspoken period of time between that statement and the following one, and the earth became desolate and empty, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So in other words, in the beginning, God created everything. He created the earth, and then something happened that caused the earth to be in a state of bleak ruination before the creation of mankind. And then what we're seeing is the reformation of the earth. And again, the installation of a new governor in this realm, of a new vice regent who's going to govern this realm that's being rejuvenated and reformed, and that would be, of course, Adam, because Adam was created to be a son of God.
Right.
If you read the genealogy of Jesus of Nazareth, it goes all the way back through his genealogy, all the way to Adam, the son of God.
Right.
And so I believe that, and I break this down in my book Birthright, but I believe that our Genesis is much more magnificent than what we have hitherto countenanced. I believe that mankind was created to be a member in the divine family, in the family of God, and that we have older siblings. There are older siblings in this family who look like us, or rather, who we look like, and that this would be that angelic race, who I denominate as the elder race in my book. And I call them the elder race because they're never directly categorized or named outside of the word angel or angelic. And the word angel is nondescript. It's simply a description of occupation rather than of nature or kind.
Right.
It simply means messenger. Malak in the Hebrew and angelos in the Greek, it just means a messenger, one who is sent, an envoy. But clearly in the biblical narrative, we have these non-human, extraterrestrial beings who are in play. And they're coming from somewhere that's not planet Earth. Indeed, their primal origin is not planet Earth. And that's why I argue in the beginning of my book that the angels encountered in the biblical narrative are extraterrestrial beings. There's no way around it, because extraterrestrial simply means a being whose origin or provenance is not planet Earth.
Right.
And these angelic beings that we are encountering in the narrative, in the biblical narrative. In other words, the characters in the story are encountering these beings, these angels. They are not from the earth. And we know they're not from the earth because in the book of Job we read that God is laying the foundations of the earth, and as he's doing this, the morning stars are singing together. And morning star is an epithet for this angelic race. The morning stars are singing together, and all the sons of God are shouting for joy. This isn't a pre-Adamic context. The human species does not yet exist in this scenario.
Right.
And yet you have these sentient beings who indeed the earth is being created, so they're not from the earth. You have these sentient beings who pre-exist mankind and who are not from planet Earth. How else should we describe them if not extraterrestrial?
Right. I love the way you describe it in the book about how they would, describe what they see as a chariot, but that's because that's the best technology they had in their day.
Right. So you have these beings, these angelic beings, again, who I denominate as the elder race. You have the members of the elder race. When they're dispatched to the earth to deliver a message or to interact with human beings, and again, this is within the context of the biblical narrative, in several cases, you have them arriving at the helms of what I would describe as advanced aerospace vehicles.
Right.
They're arriving at the helms of vehicles of conveyance. These vehicles of conveyance are described variously in the biblical text as the chariots of God, the chariots of Israel, and they're described as of chariot of fire. That's it. I mean, that's the only description you get. You don't get a more meticulous or detailed description of the vehicle. You just are told that these extraterrestrial angelic envoys are flying around in something.
Right.
And these Bronze Age people are describing that something in the best way that they know how, because the most advanced vehicle of conveyance during that period of time was a chariot.
Right.
And a chariot had wheels, and it had bronze, and it was, it had horses, because people in the Bronze Age could not conceive of a horseless chariot. That was not a thing.
Right.
You had to have some kind of a beast of burden pulling the chariot in order to make it move. So it makes sense that they would describe something, let's say an advanced piece of technology, an advanced piece of aerospace technology, as a chariot. But I don't believe that as modern readers of the Bible that we are constrained to read the text as the people in the Bronze Age.
Right.
We know that horses don't fly. I mean, we learned that Santa Claus isn't real when we're kids, and this usually comes upon the realization that reindeer don't fly either. And sleds aren't made to traverse the heavens, only the snow. They're only made for snow. And these sort of obvious observations are quickly noted by us in our youth, and the idea of Santa Claus is discarded because it's illogical. The same thing, I think we can do the same thing. I think we're entitled to do the same thing when we look at something like a chariot of God, which is the chariot of God and its horsemen. Well, we're not looking at flying horses. Horses don't fly any more than reindeer fly.
Right.
That is a fact, and we don't have to pretend that it's not. And so when I approach, and I take the biblical text seriously for many reasons, because many people will say, well, the whole thing's a fairy tale. Well, that's not actually true. I believe that the Bible is the most remarkable, it's really a compilation of books, the most remarkable compilation of books ever written or compiled, and there's many, many reasons why I say that it distinguishes itself from all other ancient texts in many ways, not the least of which is prophecy, things that are predicted about the future which come to pass with 100% accuracy. That's one of the indications that this is, in fact, what the late Chuck Missler used to describe as a integrated message system from outside of time.
Oh, that's good. That's great. People were projecting onto the things that were mysterious to them to the best of their ability because of what was surrounding them. And do you think that's happening today when people see things in the sky they can't explain? We've got supposed UFOs, UAPs happening, and we see them as saucers or possible Lockheed Martin technology. But you think there's something else beyond that we're just not comprehending that is part of the supernatural world?
I think that what we're looking at in regard to UAPs, it's two things. Well, it's three things. Let's begin with the obvious. Many of the sightings that people have conventional explanations.
Right.
They see things, all kinds of different phenomena in the sky, sometimes flocks of birds, sometimes various kinds of aircraft that are flying around in the distance that might look like something else. So a lot of the sightings that people have are not let's say, just have conventional explanations.
For sure.
That leaves us with two other categories. We have craft that are of human origin, and then craft that are of non-human origin. The craft that would be of human origin, so we're talking about we're talking about advanced aerospace vehicles that are capable of extraordinary feats, not your normal jet flying in the sky or even one of our advanced fighter jets. We're talking about something that can make sharp right-angle turns at high rates of speed, that can disappear, that can, again, do things that conventional aeronautics does not allow for. We have craft like that we have, I think the United States government, probably the Chinese, probably the Russians, have developed advanced aerospace vehicles that are far more advanced than I think that the public is aware. Maybe 100 years more advanced than the conventional aircraft that we're all aware of. And so those sometimes is, I think that's in play, and people see those let's say classified aircraft, but that doesn't explain all of the phenomenon. And it's very simple to deduce that scenario, the human tech, cannot explain the entirety of the phenomenon, because the phenomenon was happening before we had our own aircraft, before it was happening in World War II, for example, and previous to World War II, before we had the technology to build the kind of advanced stuff we build today. And it was happening even in certainly at the turn of the 19th century and earlier. I think that especially the saucer type craft have been in our skies since our inception, since Genesis 1, in other words. Because as we were alluding to earlier, I believe that this angelic race, the elder race, that they are using advanced aerospace vehicles. In other words, I don't think it's far-fetched to propose that this angelic race, that they themselves are at the helms of some of these saucer craft.
Right.
And in fact, I believe that personally very strongly. I have good reason to believe it. So
why?
But the phenomenon has been around for a long time. That's why a very simplistic explanation that this is human-made technology, we've developed this technology over the decades, it falls short because it does not account for the totality of the phenomenon as seen over many centuries. Why
do you have that belief that you were just alluding to?
Well, first and foremost, there's anecdotal experiences that friends of mine have had that seem to indicate that there's an angelic component to some of this. Now, it's important to understand that when we talk about the elder race, this angelic faction, that you have, according to the biblical account, you have both the good guys and the bad guys, so to speak. You have those who are still loyal to the kingdom of heaven and those who are in a state of rebellion and insurrection and apostasy, the quote-unquote fallen angels. That's actually not a biblical term, fallen angel, but it's a biblical idea.
Right.
And it really, to be more accurate, I think we can be more accurate by describing this faction as apostate sons of God. These are the apostate sons of God who are here with us, interacting with us. And I think that, this is a very exceedingly ancient and technologically advanced civilization. And so the good guys and the bad guys would be just as advanced, and they would be using the same kind of technology, certainly would have a knowledge of the same kind of physics.
Right.
And so we could be encountering and have been encountering potentially for many thousands of years, again, going all the way back to the inception of the human species on planet Earth, we could have been encountering and are still encountering these guys, this faction, this group, the elder race, good and bad, loyal and disloyal. And they would be using the same kind of technology. And I think it would be this saucer type technology, not just the saucers, but most of us are familiar with the saucer craft, the flying saucer model, let's call it. And I have no reason to, I think that there's no reason to reject such a proposition. I mean, if this angelic race is in fact exceedingly ancient, we know from the biblical text that mankind was created to be a little lower than the angels. That these beings are, not only do they pre-exist us, but that they have more extraordinary capabilities than we do. Biologically speaking, they're more intelligent than we are.
Right.
They know more about the universe than we do. Their understanding of physics would be far more advanced than ours. And there's no reason to think that they would not be operating this advanced technology. And people's, of course, when I say things like this, I ignite a whole lot of contention and questions, because a lot of people are coming from a perspective. A lot of people in the Christian community are coming from the perspective that all of that content dealing with angels and the kingdom of heaven is all supernatural.
Right.
But the problem with the word supernatural is it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any explanatory power whatsoever. The word supernaturalis comes from the Latin. It's not a biblical term. It's a term that we impose on the Bible. It's a term that basically is used to describe anything that we don't understand.
Yeah.
But I contend that if you have an alleged supernatural occurrence, if you can understand the mechanisms behind that occurrence, it's no longer super, it's just now natural.
Right.
Totally. If you can explain it, if you have enough knowledge about the physics of the material world, it can probably be explained by those laws and through the development of technology associated with that understanding of physics. So what I'm saying is, I don't believe I believe fundamentally, from my point of view, there's only one truly supernatural being, and that is God himself.
For sure. I agree. Do you think, oh, sorry, continue.
I would just say everything else in the universe is constrained by the same laws of physics.
For sure.